And certainly the evidence we've heard is that what came to be described as lockdown had been considered and was under consideration during this period. Is that something you understood at the meeting, or did you think you were raising something that the Prime Minister hadn't already heard?
No, it was clear. It was clear that some of these things had been surfaced, but the Prime Minister wasn't persuaded. So I'll give you an example in relation to my surprise. The Prime Minister wasn't aware that in other parts of the world they had lockdowns in place and fines could be issued if you breached the lockdown. I was surprised he wasn't aware of that in relation to what's happening elsewhere.
He said that, did he?
Yeah, because my Chief of Staff gave the example of Milan in relation to the imposition of fines. The Prime Minister wasn't aware, for example, in France there were some tensions because Parisians were going to other parts of the country, and so it was important to keep people confined to where they were. And that was the conversation we were having, and I was surprised at the lack of awareness of some of these things.
You go on in your statement, Mr. Khan, to describe the exchanges at this meeting, and in summary, tell me if I've got this right, you and Mr. Johnson agreed that there would be a press conference that day, later on the Thursday, where you would both appear together and ask hospitality venues to close. And subsequently, you got a message to say that wasn't, sorry, I've leapt ahead. You then left Downing Street to go back to City Hall to prepare for the press conference, but you then got a message to say that there'd been second thoughts and that the press conference wasn't going to go ahead after all. Is that I'm going to take you to that particular part of your witness statement in a moment, but is that a summary of what was discussed at the meeting?
It is, but it's just worth explaining. It was quite clear during the meeting that the Prime Minister was hesitant to bring in measures. I made the point to him, look, you're a libertarian, I'm somebody who's passionate about human rights. If we're both saying to London, we've got to have restrictions, that is really powerful. You're Conservative, I'm Labour. It's a really powerful thing for both of us to be addressing London. And that point landed with Dom Cummings and with the Prime Minister, I thought. And he said, you're right, let's have a press conference together. And so I left Downing Street to return to City Hall, because it was going to be some hours later, the press conference, so I could get my words together and so forth.
Let's just look, if we may, at paragraph 92, and towards the end of that paragraph, because it's here that you describe, after you've gone back to City Hall, receiving a call from Dominic Cummings to say that the decision had been made not to go ahead with the press conference. But his explanation for that partly was that the matter would be discussed further at Cobra the next day, but also this: he was concerned about the impact on the financial markets and thought an announcement on the Friday, as the markets were about to close for the weekend, would be better. Now, one of the broad themes the inquiry is addressing is this question of balancing economic considerations against the health benefits of imposing MPIs. That would seem to be a perfectly logical way of balancing those competing considerations on one view, Mr. Khan.
In isolation, yes, but what it does, it avoids the link between lives and livelihoods, the link between the health of individuals and the health of the economy. We know, and they knew at the time, that community transmission means people catch this virus very, very quickly, which inhibits their ability to be good workers, productive workers, and so forth. So I couldn't disagree with him saying the impact on the markets and so forth. My frustration, further 24 hours of this virus spreading, what impact would that have on the financial markets, on our productivity, and so forth?
It's an example of, in this case, the Prime Minister trying to balance the health impacts against the economic impacts of taking these decisions.
We didn't get a chance to discuss it.
Well, you're right. He'd already taken that decision and told you of his decision.
That's right.